wants to. Service. Roofing.
I think she's coming right this way. She stayed over when you.
Listen in a minute. Okay.
Everybody ready to blast off here? All right. Here we go, and away we go. We'll now call the Plan Commission of July 12th, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Hannah here.
Grillo here. Jasinski here.
Clark here. Kavich here.
Guzekowski here.
Oldani here.
Seifert here.
For the record, Commissioners Carrillo and Alderperson Guzekowski were present. Their microphones are not on.
Thank you. Commissioner Chandler's excused tonight. That will get us to the approval of minutes of June 14th, 2022. And we will take these separately, and also June 28th, 2022. So let's start with 14th, please.
So just a little bit of clarification for what the proposed change to the minutes are. When reviewing the minutes of May 24th, there was an error saying that Alderman Lorik stated that the roll call incorrectly showed that he was excused. That should actually say that he was incorrectly shown as calling the meeting to order. That's the only change.
Okay, thank you.
Seifert moves to approve the minutes of June 14th, 2022 with improvements.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call, beginning with Commissioner Hannah.
Anna abstains.
Grillo abstains.
Clark, aye. Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski aye.
Oldani abstains.
Seifert, aye.
Abstentions? And missing one. Okay, that will get us to the 28th. So if you'd please take a look.
Oldani moves to accept the minutes of the Plan Commission meeting for Tuesday, June 28, 2022.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with Carrillo.
Aye. Jasinski aye.
Clark abstains. Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Anna abstains.
Okay, that will get us to item 4, significant common council actions. Carrie?
There were none. There was a typo on the agenda. Apologies for that.
Okay. Board of Housing and Zoning Appeals, there were no actions to date. And item 6, quarterly Parks Recreation Commission actions, there are none. We will see our next report on September 27th, 2022. And that will lead us into our first public hearing of the night, public hearing 7A, and that is a sign appeal submitted by Brad McLean, UW Credit Union, and it would allow the applicant to install the following signs as listed, and I will not read them because they're extensive. So, Carrie?
Reading the notice into the record, City of Oak Creek notice of public hearing before the Plan Commission. A public hearing for a sign appeal will be held July 12, 2022, 6 p.m. in the Common Council chambers. The appellant is Brad McLean. The tax key number is 813-904-9000. Property location is 7902 South Main Street. The request is for variances from part of the Drexel Town Square Mixed-Use Plan Development District, General Development Plan, and Regulating Plan related to the number of wall signs allowed per elevation, the number of ground signs allowed per street frontage, and the maximum dimensions for proposed signs. Granted, the variances would allow the applicant to install the following signs in addition to the permitted signs. On the north elevation, one primary logo with letters wall sign 5 foot by 12 foot 4 3/4 inch or 62.16 square feet. On the east elevation, one primary logo with letters wall sign measuring 5 feet 7 1/4 inch by 5 feet 7 1/8 inch or 31.35 square feet. One ATM logo wall sign measuring 8.5 inches by 31 3/4 inches or 1.87 square feet. One tagline letter wall sign measuring 7 3/4 inches by 80 3/8 inches or 4.32 square feet. One welcome letter wall sign measuring 8 1/4 inches by 72 inches or 4.12 square feet. One wall-mounted ATM flag sign measuring 19 inches by 42 1/4 inch or 5.57 square feet. On the west elevation, one primary logo wall sign measuring 5 feet 7 3/4 inches by 5 feet 7 1/8 inch or 31.4 square feet. One secondary ground monument sign measuring 2 feet 11 1/4 inches by 7 feet or 20.56 square feet, which is directly east of the southern access driveway. On the ITM canopies, 3 button wall signs measuring 2 feet 5 inches by 2 feet 5 inches or 5.84 square feet. On the south sides of the ITM canopies in the center of the parking lot, 3 button wall signs measuring 2 feet 5 inches by 2 feet 5 inches or 5.84 square feet. On the north sides of the ITM canopies in the center of the parking lot, 3 tagline letter wall signs measuring 7 3/4 inches by 80 3/8 inches or 4.32 square feet on the east sides of the ITM canopies in the center of the parking lot. 3 ITM logo wall signs measuring 8.5 inches by 31 3/4 inches or 1.87 square feet on the east sides of the ITM canopies in the center of the parking lot. And 3 logo wall signs measuring 7 feet 9 inches by 7 feet or 54.25 square feet on the west sides of the ITM canopies in the center of the parking lot. Zoning of the property is DTS MUPDD, Drexel Town Square Mixed Use Plan Development District. All interested persons wishing to be heard are invited to be present. Dated this 22nd day of June 2022, Plan Commission, City of Oak Creek, Mayor Dan Bukevich, Chairman. This is a public hearing. All those wishing to speak on the matter, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and address your comments to the Plan Commission. This hearing is now open.
Great, thank you, Carrie. As Carrie stated, it is a public hearing. I will make 3 calls for anybody wishing to speak. This will be the first call. Second call, anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, give your name and address. Third and final call, anybody wishing to speak on item 7A of tonight's agenda, please approach podium, name and address. Okay, we will now close the public hearing and we will go on to consideration of that proposed sign appeal in item 9A. So, Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a sign appeal for UW Credit Union. And the requests are in the, as were previously mentioned, in the hearing notice, so I won't go over all of those again, but these are the proposed locations. It does seem like a lot of signs that were included in that sign appeal notice. However, I think we can get through all of them relatively easily this evening. Basically, it's one wall sign on the north, a few wall signs, and kind of almost directional signs, if you will, on the east elevation, which is the entry elevation. One wall sign on the west elevation, which is a non-entry facade. One monument sign, which is a secondary monument sign on the south. And then the canopies themselves have several signs. This is the proposed sign on the north elevation. And I should say that the allowed signs per the PUD for Drexel Town Square are one primary sign per entry facade per tenant. Since this is a single tenant building and it only has one main entry, we have a couple of variances for the remaining signs. 1 to 2 flag signs per entry facade are also allowed with the maximum square footages as included in your staff reports. 1 eye-level sign or graphic per 12 linear feet of entry facade with a maximum coverage of 10% of the glass on which it's placed. The maximum height of primary signage is limited to 15% of the retail floor height. And there is an allowance for an additional wall sign on a special condition facade that is basically those buildings that are along Drexel or Howell Avenue. You're allowed to have an additional sign on Drexel or Howell Avenue. In this particular case, on the north elevation, the variance requested is actually just for the maximum height because it exceeds the 15% of the retail floor height of the building. Otherwise, the dimensions are okay, and because this is facing Drexel Avenue, it is considered a special condition facade. There are several signs proposed on the east, which is the entry facade. The wall sign, which is actually kind of a dimensional hanging sign from the roof. It's not actually attached to the wall, but there's really no other category that it can fit in, so we put it as a wall sign. The ATM signage, the reason that there is a variance request is because there are a number of signs that are proposed on this elevation. All of these signs are actually dimensional, meaning that they are not flat, they stick out, they have raised letters, channel wall letters, except for the doors, which are just vinyl graphics. So there is also one blade sign, and the reason that the blade sign is included in the variance request is because it exceeds the maximum length of 3 feet or 36 inches as called for in the PUD. It does include raised letters. There's no requirement for the blade or flag sign to have raised letters, but perfectly fine for it to be dimensional. The west side, again, is a non-entry facade. It has the same sign that is proposed on the east elevation in terms of size and location. The proposed monument sign on the south, again, this is a secondary sign, so it does have to be a little bit smaller than the primary sign, which we'll talk about in the master sign plan for this property. The only thing that staff will say about this, and I'll reiterate this in the master sign plan review discussion, is that on the fin for the sign itself, that's where the addresses are and the Drexel Town Square logo is. That's all predetermined. There is one design that is allowed for Drexel Town Square in terms of dimensions, in terms of color, in terms of materials. So that all must meet the PUD requirements. And the reason that that sign, just going back there, the reason that sign requires a variance is just due to the location, actually. The dimensions are fine. Dimensionally, it meets all the requirements of the PUD in regards to the base and the overall cabinet. However, because it is proposed to be located on the access alleyway, which is not actually a public street, that's the reason that it's included in the variance criteria. Rather than going through all of the individual signs that are proposed for the canopies, what I would like to just have the Plan Commission focus on is the overall design. We do have each of those signs listed out for consideration of variances. But if the Plan Commission is willing to take them all as kind of one consideration, that's fine, or we have them broken down. If you do not decide to grant variances for all of them, staff do not have any major concerns with the proposal. The one thing that was brought up is, while they're not considered signs, the red illuminated bars that are proposed, some of those are bollards, some of those are actually illuminated kind of light bars that are on the sides of the ATM and I think they call it a key with the signage on it. Just one thing that staff noted is that some people might see that and think that might mean they're closed or inoperable. But that is part of the overall branding for UW Credit Union. The red is part of their logo, so that's why it's included here. And we do have some rendering images for you to kind of give an idea of what these would look like in the real world. These are nighttime renderings. So what you can see from the building side is kind of on the bottom left. And what you would be seeing as you enter into the ATMs is on the top right. We also have a night rendering for you to kind of get an idea of how those would be illuminated. The U logo, that's kind of like a super graphic on the side, is only going to be backlit. It's not internally illuminated. There are some additional pieces of information that were included in your staff reports as to, which signs require what variance or why. Staff does not make recommendations regarding sign appeals. However, decisions to approve a sign variance can include these considerations, and variance determinations must be made utilizing the following criteria, including there shall be no public harm, there shall be a public benefit, and they must conform to section 17.0607 general sign regulations, which were provided to you at your stations as well as in an email. That's just a section of code saying, what kinds of signs are prohibited. None of these signs seem to stand out to staff as being fitting any of those criteria for being prohibited. So with that in mind, if the Plan Commission wishes to take each of these on their own merit and grant variances individually, there are several motions that can be made. However, if there are no concerns with the sign package as presented, there is a motion that is included in your staff reports for consideration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Before we go to the commission, would the applicant like to say anything before we start, or just wait on questions if you're with us tonight?
We'll wait on questions.
Okay, indicated they'll wait. So we will open it up. Christine, would you like to start?
Yes, the only question I have is the maintenance of this illumination. Just for appearance, it's very important that it will be maintained since they are everywhere almost in the property. So I just want to make sure that they may be always maintained and lit. We don't have any discrepancy, otherwise gonna ruin the beautiful design that you have.
We'll need your name and address, sir.
Sorry, Kevin Carrero, Adrenaline Agency. I'm not local. Do you still need my address?
Yeah, we just still need an address, wherever your business.
195 New Hampshire Avenue, Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Well, you came a long way.
I did.
So again, my question is there going to be a maintenance agreement, something in place to make sure some of those red illumination are clear, they're going to be well maintained? Again, as you see at night, if one goes off, and I have seen it several places, it's kind of ruined the entire appearance.
Sure. So the light fixtures are LED, so they would have a long lifespan. So they won't need periodic replacement. All the lighting is going to be controlled through the building management system, so they'll be set automatically. There's no, we don't have to worry about someone forgetting to flip a switch and not turning the lights on. They'll all be standard and automatic.
Okay, and also like I see a little bit of curving inside and out. They're going to be maintained clean, not collect any dust or whatever that may be.
Yes, I mean, there might be some debris that builds up from time to time, but if anyone has been in a UW Credit Union branch, their branches are pretty meticulous, and they do an excellent job of maintaining their branches inside and out.
Just to go ahead.
I was going to say, if I could just, Cheryl, your microphone lit up?
Sorry, Cheryl Weisensell, 3500 University Avenue, Madison, Wisconsin, and I'm the facility director for UW Credit Union, and we have programs in place to do washes twice a year, to go through, check everything. Plus, we do check things with security camera, and we have very good employees that submit facility work orders continuously, because we do take a lot of pride in our locations.
Perfect. The building looks very good and it's in Drexel Town Square, so we want to keep it looking good. All right, thank you.
Excellent. Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Ashley?
I just have one comment, regarding the monument sign off of Town Square Way. Just being cognizant of the placement of that regarding sight distance with the height of it, just making sure that vehicles can see in and out appropriately.
Okay.
No issues with the building signage. The ITMs seems like a bit of an overkill with all the signs. Do you have ITMs in other locations?
We just finished installing them at our Bayview location, which is on the corner of Chase and Oklahoma. And we haven't completed the signage part of that yet. But the ITMs, they look great and people have been very well receiving them.
The Bayview location is going to have all the same signage? Is
Correct,
it?
all the way through.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Nothing for me.
Don?
No questions.
Brad?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Number one is the verbiage of "here for every you." To me, that's just a little overkill. You don't see statements on other buildings with their signs and locations. I just thought that was a little overkill, but you're having the same thing with the so-called ATM stations. I think you've got a little overkill for your signage.
So that tagline is typically a message that is located inside the branches. And it's just a welcoming message that the credit union provides to their members. The significance with these machines and the structures that we're providing is that the technology that's being used with the ATMs are kind of replacing the typical functions of a teller drive-through. So we're trying to replicate that same messaging that members would see when they walk into the branch, for those that don't choose to go inside the branch but choose to do their transactions on the at the ITMs. There's also functionality where a member can approach the ITM and be able to speak to a live teller. So it's kind of giving them the convenience of not having to get out of their car to go inside the branch, but we wanted to provide that same welcoming message.
Although I think you had just a little overkill on your signage. Okay. And the verbiage to me did not stimulate me at all. So I would think that if I'm not moved by it, I think other people may not be moved by it either.
Just one point of clarification. I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Siebert. However, we cannot regulate based on content. So if the sign is acceptable with any text or logo or graphics, that's something that can be considered. It can be considered for number, dimensions, those kinds of things. But as far as what the copy says, we do not have any regulation. We cannot have any regulation over that.
Terry, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying my opinion of what it does for me.
I recognize that. I just want to make sure that that's clear for everybody.
I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying that that particular statement does not kind of get me interested in coming to the credit union.
Understood. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. First, let me say it's a really stellar, nice looking building. Great addition to Drexel Town Square. Understand you're doing the corporate logos and really doing it right, in my opinion. Looks good. So I have nothing really on the building itself. Just a couple concerns and we can address them together. I'm looking for the correct page, but it's the canopy bar that calls out the height at 10 foot, so nobody comes in and hits it.
Mr. Mayor, that's actually not included as part of the appeal. That's part of the master sign plan, so it's a separate item.
That's separate?
Yep.
Never mind then. I stand corrected. But let's go to the monument signs, and that's my only other question. In what Carrie called the blades, you can see the address is in red, and I'd like to just kind of ask Assistant Fire Chief Havey. I know the fire department I know this is a really weird thing, but it's really important if your building needs to be protected by fire service. In the dark, how does the red go? Does the color matter? I guess that's my question.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Mike Havey, Assistant Chief of Fire. So we discussed that earlier in some of our pre-planning meetings that the color scheme does fit our needs, and if it's illuminated or reflective, would be our request.
Okay, and is it reflective or illuminated? I guess that leads to the second question to make sure fire can find you guys.
Sure, it was not intended to be illuminated, nor reflective. However, we did recently revisit that, and drawings haven't been updated, but we were gonna request if there was an opportunity to go white letters on a darker background. We feel like that would provide more contrast and more of that visual.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it. I don't mean to interrupt, but I believe that there is a standard color, although one could make an argument that the standard color has not necessarily made it through all of Drexel Town Square, but I believe that the standard color is either black or a green. So we'll just make sure that we coordinate with the association or the board members who make the final reviews of these plans following Plan Commission review. I believe that's just a standard.
And it's just a little different because we actually have the Drexel Town Square logo on that blade. So we just want to keep some consistency there, but more importantly, we want to take safety into account.
Any other questions?
Do you have any other concerns? You think you'll be able to find it?
I think we'll be able to locate it. We're through the square quite often, so hopefully not as often as the medical buildings. We were very aware of where those are located.
Yeah, again, I know we're a little bit, might think it's overkill. I really think it's a really unique addition to Drexel Town Square. I'm very pleased with the final version from where this started, so. If there's no further discussion, questions, we'll look for a motion, please, on 9A.
Lork moves that the Plan Commission approve sign variance allowing the installation of the following on the property at 7902 South Main Street. On the north elevation, one primary logo with channel letters, wall sign measuring 5'0" by 12' 4 3/4 inch. On the east elevation, one primary logo with channel letters, wall sign measuring 5'7" 1/4 inch by 5'7" 1/8 inch. One ATM logo wall sign measuring 8.5 inch by 31 3/4 inch. One tagline letter wall sign measuring 7 3/4 inch by 80 3/8 inch. One channel letter sign on the red entry element measuring 8.25 inch by 72 inches. One wall mounted flag blade sign measuring 19 inch by 42 1/4 inch. On the west elevation, one primary logo wall sign measuring 5'7 3/8 inch by 5'7 1/8 inch. Ground monument, one secondary ground monument sign measuring 2 11 1/4 inch by 7 0 inches on the south. ITM canopies, 3 button wall signs measuring 2 5 inch by 2 5 inch on the north sides of the ITM canopies. 3 tagline letter wall signs measuring 7 3/4 inch by 80 3/8 inch on the east side of the ITM canopies. 3 ITM logo wall signs measuring 8.5 inch by 31 3/4 inch on the east sides of the ITM canopies. And 3 button wall signs measuring 2 5 inch by 2 5 inch on the south sides of the ITM canopies.
There's one more.
Oh, and 3 logo wall signs measuring 7 9 inch by 7 0 inch on the west sides of the ITM canopies.
Hannah seconds.
Roll call beginning with Ashley.
Jinsky, aye.
Lork, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
Chizikowski, aye.
Holdani, aye.
Seifert, no.
Hannah, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. That will bring us back. We're gonna go a little backwards here to 8A into old business, and that's plan review of site building landscape and related plans submitted by Matt Coles. Global Schoolwear for a single tenant office warehouse building at 200 West Oakview Park Way. That is. Carrie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Plan Commissioners should be fairly aware of this property. We've reviewed it a couple of times. This was held at the June 28th meeting. That was to allow some additional time for staff to review revised plans. We have received a couple of revisions since then, and the latest being from Monday. Those plans are provided to the Plan Commission. They were provided by email, and they are at your stations. A couple of the things that have been revised since we last spoke. Site plan has remained relatively unchanged with the exception of some of the wetland impacts. As was mentioned at the last meeting, the wetland impacts have actually been reduced. And we did receive from the DNR today a permit for a small amount of wetland fill, about 591 square feet of wetland fill on the south side. The pavement has been reduced to avoid wetland impacts to the north and to the west. The building footprint has been slightly altered in terms of allowing for some elevation changes for the architecture itself. There were some changes to the landscaping plans as well. What I'm showing on the screen right now is the overall landscape plan and kind of being northeast along South Oakview Parkway, and then along the south side of the building. And what has been changed, they have added some landscape elements on the outside of that screen wall, as well as some screening for a proposed transformer location. Now, staff have received these plans. However, there are still some pieces of information that are missing for us to be able to determine whether or not this meets code requirements. One of the primary issues is that we do not have the heights of these plants at installation and maturity. We do have a requirement for screening materials to be placed and maintained at a minimum height of 3 feet. So that is for the parking areas primarily, but we do need to make sure that we have those pieces of information to determine code conformance. So there may be a couple of other items that need to be revised with the landscape plan once we receive those pieces of information. On the screen right now is the revised floor plan. Not much has changed other than to recognize that there are some architectural elements that have been added to the east and the south elevations. What is highlighted is the floor plan for the office component on the southeast. Turning to the elevations themselves, the east elevation, we have some updated information in terms of the percentages of materials as was requested. We did request that the Nichiha panels and the glass be separated to determine compliance, and I believe that was included in the updated plans that are at your stations. What we will need from the Plan Commission is just a 3/4 majority approval if these elevations are determined to be acceptable. And the reason for that is because the Nichiha and the precast concrete both have some percentage limitations in code. It's about 50% of each material. These go slightly over and under those percentages, so nothing is more than 60% in terms of either of those materials. Staff have no major concerns with the proposal as shown on the screen. Would like to recognize and express appreciation for the updated elevations for the north and the west, incorporating some of staff comments. What we have here are some color changes to kind of break up that white wall that brings this more into conformance with code in terms of providing those lengths of wall that are in excess of 100 feet to provide some variations in either materials, colors, or relief. So that incorporates more of those elements per code. Same with the west, some color changes just to kind of break up that facade a little bit. Also on the west elevation, the gates for the proposed trash enclosure, those were updated per staff comments. They are now proposing to be metal gates as opposed to chain link, so appreciation for that as well. The screen wall, however, is still shown at 8 feet. And while staff did receive some diagrams showing kind of site distances for certain elements, we would still like to recommend that the screen wall be brought up in height to kind of provide more screening for that loading dock. However, if the Plan Commission is satisfied with an 8-foot tall wall, just want to point out that this would be the shortest screen wall in the park. The next shortest would be 10 feet, and they range anywhere from 10 feet to 16 feet. More of them are about at 13. So there is a condition that for Plan Commission consideration to determine what the appropriate height of that screen wall would be, if it was 8 feet as proposed or anywhere in addition to that based on the information for what is seen throughout the park. Just a reminder that while we did look at those elevations, the signs that were included on the building are not part of this review. They will be required to be reviewed at a later date. Depending on the details for them themselves, they may or may not require variances, which would require additional Plan Commission review. Again, on the south side, just showing those columns of Nichi-Ha panels. Also want to point out that while we did receive those site diagrams showing some of the locations of the rooftop units, want to just emphasize that those rooftop units have to be completely screened from view. The placement of the units make it a little bit difficult to determine whether or not they would be adequately screened. Parapets that are formed from these columns are probably not tall enough to fully screen those, so we'll just want to make sure that whenever those RTUs are installed, if in the future they need to be screened through other means, that would have to be approved by either the Plan Commission or the Department of Community Development. And on the screen right now is just a rendering of the building itself, showing those improvements to those elevations. And if there are any questions regarding the details of the distributor, Global Schoolware, any of the information that was provided in the previous reviews in terms of details for hours or, peak employees or minimum parking, I do have those details if you have questions. But there is a recommendation, a suggested motion that is in 3 parts with some conditions for Plan Commission consideration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Applicant just want to wait on any questions as we go through this again? They're indicating yes, so, Fred, would you like to start us off? We'll go from the right side.
I still have a question about the DNR approval for the backfill. They were supposed to have that and fill in the wetlands on the west and south of the facility, and I haven't heard, did they get an approval or didn't they?
Yes, they actually reduced the impacts to the wetlands. They are not filling on the west side. They are filling 591 square feet on the south side only, and that permit from the DNR was received today.
Okay. That's all I was concerned about this time.
That's it? Okay.
That's it.
Don?
Nothing right now. Thank you.
Okay. Chris?
No questions, thank you.
Greg?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ashley?
No comments, thank you.
Dawn?
Nothing for me.
Christine?
The only concern, even though I know that the DNR submitted their permits, I still think killing the wetland or filling it, it's just, it's too much in this area. So it's just a comment.
Okay. Well, the last time through, we had a ways to go. The biggest thing was the DNR. I'll take their word for it. They're the experts in what they're doing. I know wetlands are allowed to be filled, and to what extent. I know they take it case by case, so I'll take their word for it. Just very happy with the progress the applicant made with our staff, and you really took the suggestions to heart. Really do appreciate breaking up that back wall going forward. And I'm really, with staff, I don't have any concerns on a little bit of overage on the material one way or the next. So, that's all I got. I'm good. So, if there's no further discussion or questions, motion, please.
Donnie moves that the plan commission, hold on one second. Gary, number 6, do we still have to come up with a height on the,
Oh, yes,
wall, the dock screen?
we do, and, you know, I guess I'll comment on this. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, the wall is a little bit short. I always say, let's try to stay consistent on that. Can the applicant at least meet the minimum lowest standard? 13 foot. Done deal. Thank you.
Donnie moves that the plan commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Matt Coles Global Schoolwear for the property at 200 West Oakview Parkway with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. 2, that all approvals and or permits from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources are submitted to the Engineer Department and Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications. 3, that all grading, drainage, utility, and stormwater management plans are approved prior to submission of permit applications. 4, that the elevations are revised to incorporate materials percentages excluding glazing, fire cement. Panels may comprise a maximum of 50% of any elevation. Non-textured concrete panels may comprise a maximum of 50% of any elevation.
Commissioner Aldani, one clarification for this one. Because those percentages exceed 50% on some of the elevations, I just want the Plan Commission to approve of a condition that says that the elevations are revised to incorporate materials percentages excluding glazing. If we have a 3/4 majority approval, the percentages that were presented that exceed 50% would be approved.
That be an additional condition or revised 4?
I will revise number 4.
Okay.
Revision is on the screen.
All right, I'll start with number 4, that the elevations are revised to incorporate materials percentages excluding glazing. Number 5, that the north and west elevations incorporate color and other material changes and windows. Non-textured concrete panels may be utilized as the primary building material on the west and north elevations. Any modifications to the exterior of the building, including additions, shall meet the code requirements effective at the time of application. 6, that plans are revised to increase the height of the loading dock screen wall to a minimum height of 13 feet as measured from grade. 7, that the plans are revised to include a non-combustible and code-compliant material for the trash enclosure gate, chain link prohibited. 8, that the landscape plans are revised to in conformance with the Plan Commission and staff comments and code requirements. 9, that the plans are revised to include locations and screening for all mechanicals, transformers, and utilities. All mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground, building, and rooftops shall be screened from view. 10, that all light sources are shielded and directed downward, and that the color temperature of the fixtures are limited to a maximum of 5,000 kelvins. And 11, that all detailed revised plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with, where am I? Greg.
Clark, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Dani, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Hannah, no. Bill, aye.
Thanks very much, guys. That will get us to 9B, signed plan review, submitted by Brad McLean, UW Credit Union, for the proposed financial institution drive-through facilities at the property at 7902 South Main Street. Carrie, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is going back to UW Credit Union, and this is the master sign plan for the property. This will incorporate all of the variances that were approved in the previous agenda item, so this includes all of the signs everywhere on the property. What we didn't talk about were the primary monument sign and the vinyl decals and the clearance bars, as well as a directional sign. Just for clarification, the super logo graphic that is on the west elevation wrapping around to the front, the northwest elevation, that is not included as a sign as it is considered part of the architecture of the building. So again, on the north, we have the one logo sign. On the east, the primary logo sign, the ATM signage, which is the tagline, as well as the UW Credit Union identifier on the ATM machinery itself, the welcome letters on the red canopy, and then the vinyl decals. Also the blade sign, which again has the push-through lettering. Just a close-up of what the ATM looks like in terms of signage on the building itself. This is also kind of recessed a little bit from the entry doors. The entry doors themselves showing the vinyl. The gray area is actually clear glass. So the only logo or the only vinyl are the text, the copy. And then another indicator, close-up of the welcome sign, which again, channel letters affixed to that red canopy. On the west side, the primary logo sign. The primary monument sign located on the north meets all the dimensional requirements. And again, the fin that's on the side for the address must meet the DTS requirements. Also, the base is required to meet some materials requirements. There is an approved brick mixture that has may or may not have actually been discontinued from the time that it was approved as part of the Drexel Town Square PUD. We have some information on where to go for locating those materials. However, if that brick actually has been discontinued, we do have something in here saying that the city engineer could approve of the replacement brick, actually. Same for the south monument sign, the secondary monument sign. Also, the push through or the dimensional lettering on both of the monument signs, those aren't required nor are they prohibited. If those were to be dimensional, they would be the only monument signs in Drexel Town Square to be that way. Most of the rest of all the rest of the monument signs actually are just your typical cabinet monument signs. Again, no prohibition, no requirement. There's just a recommendation to kind of be consistent with everything in Drexel Town Square. But again, if the applicant chooses to have that dimensional sign, that's their purview. There's one directional sign that is located kind of toward the entrance area for the ITMs. That's showing where people are intending to go for the ATMs and the lobby. One point to be made for the directional, and that is with regard to the copy itself. We did get the dimensions for the overall structure, but there is a limitation in code for how large a directional sign can actually be. So we need to have the dimensions for the copy, and we need to make it very clear that the entire sign face cannot be covered in copy, otherwise that will go over what is allowed per code. So those dimensions need to be included on revised plans as well as permit applications. And here is a graphic showing the clearance bar. These are, it's unclear as to whether there's one or more. However, they are proposed at the southern end of the ITMs for the entry. Staff is making a recommendation and had previously made a recommendation that if there's any way that we can actually incorporate that clearance information onto the ITM canopies themselves, that was preferable. These clearance bars were also not included in the site plan review that was conducted by the Plan Commission on June 28th. So the reason that we're recommending that this be incorporated into the ITM canopies themselves is because we do have a concern for the number of elements that are proposed in this location. We have a directional sign. There is a light pole there as well. The canopies with the signage that would be semi-blocked by the clearance bar itself due to the dimensions of it. As well as other potential traffic control signs that we are reviewing internally at staff level with regard to the traffic flow around here. Some of those concerns that were raised at the Plan Commission at the June 28th meeting. And those traffic control signs such as like do not enter and things like that, those are not controlled by the city because they're on site. So those would be additional elements that might be kind of crowding this area. So rather than introducing another structural element to this area that would be also competing for landscaping requirements, we want, and patron attention. I mean, that's really kind of the crux of this issue is we want to make sure that people know where to go and they're not kind of confused by the abundance of items in this area. We are recommending at staff level that the clearance heights again be incorporated into the canopies if at all possible. And these are the proposed canopies, and one of the areas that staff thought maybe you could incorporate that clearance level is on the slanted item, even if that ends up being kind of more straight, or if, that could be raised up a little bit. There are ways to incorporate that clearance in there if at all possible, without detracting from the design of the ITMs themselves. Just another reminder of what those canopies look like in the day and night. And with that information, there is a suggested motion with a couple of conditions of approval for Plan Commission consideration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Just wait on questions. Okay. You want to start us off? How about Don? How about you start us off?
This question's for Carrie for the, that height sign bar. Is that included in the language of these, conditions? Is that something we would have to add? Cause I kind of agree with staff on that. It's just, there's already been comments made about how it's getting to be a bit much and that's just another additional thing. And if we can incorporate that into the canopy, I think that's a good idea.
If the Plan Commission wishes to incorporate that as a condition, we can certainly do so.
All right, on the record, I am in favor of adding that for all the other commissioners. Other than that, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Chris?
No questions for me.
Greg?
No questions, thank you.
Ashley?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Don?
Would love to hear your comment on that. Can that be done?
Sure. We can certainly modify it. The intent of having a bar separate from the canopy is that it provides, particularly where it's upstream, it provides an impact. And they're actually designed where if a vehicle or a truck were to hit the crossbar, it would actually spin. So it doesn't get damaged. It won't pull up the foundations, but it actually kind of spins and it provides that impact where, the vehicle will be alerted before they reach the canopies. So it's a way of protecting the investment of the structure, the canopy structure itself, where if they are going to hit something, we prefer that they hit this, where, it'll be minimal damage versus one of the ITM canopies.
I was thinking also that if you're stacked up and then all of a sudden now you realize you'd have to get out of line if you were too tall, because that bar is at the beginning of the stack. I don't know, just an idea.
There is an intended escape route as well. One of the lanes is a little bit wider. There is an opportunity for, review of other alternatives for a clearance bar. It's just a matter of, are we making this area a little bit too crowded? And again, in reviewing the plans, there's a light pole, there's landscaping, there are other, infrastructure elements in this exact same area. So it's, where is that exactly going to be? How many of these clearance bars? That's why, the staff recommendation was that we just kind of consolidate things.
Understand.
Oh, nothing.
Brad?
Could those canopies raised instead of 10 feet, 6 inches up to maybe 12 feet and still give you the same effect, and you may not have to worry about that clearance?
We could, it just that adds additional cost and height, to the structures. The goal is that we're trying to standardize these. As we previously mentioned, we've already implemented, some at Bayview. We have another location that's under construction as well. So we're trying to keep these as standard as possible. And, raising them would add some significance there. Certainly something we can explore.
It's a thought.
Sure.
Is that it, Fred? The canopy, whatever you want to call it, bar, does that cover all 3 lanes, or is it just kind of hanging over the farthest west one?
So we'd have 2, so they would kind of point in to that opening. We did also look at maybe rotating them 90 degrees where, as you come in and turn to the right, potentially, you're going under it, there on the south. And then same thing on the east island. So rather than going across the lanes, they would go, pointed south in plan. As another possibility.
Well, I understand.
But basically looking at,
I get the explanation you're saying. And what if the clearance at 10 foot, that's starting to look really busy if you put it on the canopy of the ITM. Okay. I'm just trying to think, this is a little bit different because it's an open air drive-through. Usually they're covered. You're under some kind of canopy to begin with. And I don't want to equate this is much nicer, but fast food restaurants utilize these types of things as well. I can't really picture anybody that uses it off the top of my head.
No, there's the Associated Bank that's on the corner that has a canopy over their drive-through window. They don't actually have any clearance information at all.
You're right.
I did see one at their remote ATM. They do have a bar, but it's closer to the structure, the overhead structure.
Yeah, I don't have a preference one way or the next, but then again, I don't drive a car that's 10'6". But there are people that do, so you gotta accommodate all of them. So I don't know what the workable solution is, to tell you the truth. And the bar will just be a standard black bar. It won't be red, anything like that. I don't know, commissioners, what do you think? Functionality, I get it. I completely get it.
And one question, on the ATMs, there's lighting as well, right? So you'd be pushing up the lighting as well if you move that bar up?
Correct. Yeah, we'd essentially be stretching the roof structure.
Almost think you throw it out of proportion.
Right, and then that light will flood more.
I guess I can live with the bar. I know staff prefers it out, but I just as soon have somebody safe than somebody bang up their truck or bang up the property.
As a compromise, if the plan commission is willing to limit it to 1 as opposed to multiple,
I would do that because I thought there was only 1, to tell you the truth.
If there's only 1, does it serve a purpose if somebody could just drive around it anyways?
there's something to be said for the amount of elements that are in this area. Especially if we're going to put it on the corner, that may just get hit in terms of the bar, the actual pole itself, depending on where it's located. without actually seeing, how many and how they're kind of laid out, it's hard pressed for staff to give a real recommendation other than, again, it's looking pretty crowded over here. And if we're going to be talking about additional signage to try and prevent some of that traffic flow, consideration that the Plan Commission had at the last meeting, the conflicts, we may be talking about even more signage in this area. So, if the Plan Commission wishes to just kind of allow the clearance bar, but limit it, that's fine. 1, 2,
If we limit it to one and we put it on the east side island versus the west side island, does that start to clear the congestion? Because you have the directional sign on the west island, probably some landscaping. If you go back 1 or 2 slides, there you go.
well, I guess it's a little bit difficult because these aren't full plans. I mean, this is just a kind of a simplified plan. So whether or not there's any other infrastructure in the area, I'm not sure if there's another light pole there or if there's any other infrastructure in that island, in that area. We can take a look at it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you didn't post it right there, if you moved it to the north, maybe a foot or 2. And maybe off the east island, because I don't know what are those lanes, Ashley, would you think? 12 foot wide, 10 foot wide a piece for a car? Is there a standard? Yeah,
Like 10 is the narrowest you can go, like small urban, it's more
a
standard, 11
drive
to
through is
12.
considered like road width?
I would think
typically.
they'd be, yeah,
Throwing you on the
10 to
spot.
12. Yeah, I'd say 10 to 12 be safe.
This thing's gonna stick out 11 foot. So,
One part, oh, sorry.
Depending on some. So we'll have maybe,
It could be. I guess on the far east side is where you have more of you don't have that restriction with the height though, right? So it's like if you put it on the right and somebody gets through there, I don't know. That's my only thought.
yeah, I think more people are gonna be coming in this way and taking a tight left to get in there than coming the other way. And I'm okay with it. If staff can figure it out how to work it to 1. I don't know, commissioners, you wanna weigh in?
What kind of vehicles are we talking about that are over 10 and a half feet? I guess being ignorant here and
No, it could be as simple as a pickup truck with a ladder on it and they forget that there's the ladder sticking up. It could be a dumpster truck going to unload and, goes the wrong way and thinks that they can get by. Those are probably the most common.
Fire, you ever go through there with an engine? Hey, anything to add to this, Mike? Any words of wisdom here?
Again, Mike Havey with fire. Operationally, we would avoid, all drive-throughs because of, fire department apparatus are larger. So that's why it's really not a big issue for us because we would not enter into those lanes.
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
If there are trucks, they are clearance heights more than 10 and a half, then they have the options to go inside the bank during the
Very
business
much.
hours.
Very much.
So otherwise, they can come back with a regular vehicle, I guess. They can go through those clearance heights.
We also have the walk-up ATM.
Yeah, you cannot
So-
just accommodate every single car out there. It's just gonna be
We've
hard.
had school buses go in backwards and hit our ATMs. It's just amazing what you see going through drive-through. So the more caution we can give, the better, quite honestly.
I was gonna actually ask you a question. Have you had done at any other branches, even in the state or out, having those 10 and a half clearance? And how did they function?
Ours are typically higher for our drive-through canopies, the full ones. So we really haven't experienced these until Bayview.
And how is the Bayview working?
So far, so good, but it's only been a couple weeks.
Oh,
Since June 21st.
Okay, anybody have a bigger truck they can drive there? I don't know.
Okay, we gotta move one way or the next, so, I would actually trust our staff to work it out with them for something feasible. Harry, what does that mean to you? Not a lot other than a lot of work, right?
We can take a look at it along with the other site circulation issues that we were reviewing.
Okay. Then we leave it.
But, you know, as always, staff would like to know if the plan commission wants to limit this in any way, or if it's just a matter of, you know, they can have as many as they want as long as staff can come to a conclusion.
I'm okay with one, and they're showing an 11-foot distance. If the lanes are 30 feet, if somehow they, you know, they brace that thing was 15 foot long, gets you halfway.
I'm okay with staff working through them with this, but, you know, I just want to remind everybody that this was a piece of property that was kind of prized. Not everybody was down with this to go there. There's certainly concerns about the parking lot. I don't know if that's going to change or not. Not all the commissioners were on board with the signage. So I think this one little thing, I would hope you can work with staff on this. If we can find a way to get rid of those poles, I would like to see it done. I mean, I'm okay with putting it in the hands of the staff. I trust them. But, you know, there's a lot of concerns that we seem to kind of overlook and say, let's go anyway. So it seems like a pretty minor one, you know, that's my take.
I agree with Commissioner O'Donnell. I'd like to see them gone if it's feasible. And then just put the clearance on the canopy. And maybe I just don't see it, but even on drive-through restaurants, I don't ever go through something like this except for maybe a McDonald's right off the freeway. I don't think Chick-fil-A has one, which is right next door. I think the clearance is on the canopy itself. So that'd be my preference if it can work.
I think they did have a clearance bar that they installed, but I'm not sure if they changed that with their new canopy, and I don't know that they've actually installed their new canopy yet.
Can we do something like conditional approval, meaning they can have it as it's shown today, and with the progress and how many, the time goes, 6 a year, whatever, if it's working, is functioning, especially it's gonna be new to compared to the Bayview one, then maybe it's working. If something happens and gets hits or any other problem, they will need to remove it on their own cost.
I understand what you're saying, and I know that we have looked at certain conditions like that in the past. The problem is, once they're in, they're in. The issue is kind of following through on that and getting to a point where everyone will come to another plan commission meeting to kind of review something that's already been approved for installation.
Okay, so you're setting precedents, that's what
Kind
you're
of.
saying. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. My preference, I really, again, I can live with them gone, but I don't see they hurt, but we don't have a full set of drawings to see where you could put them that don't obstruct. And, you know, I talked about the East Island and moving them a little bit north off what we'd call the corner of the islands. You know, they're showing them set back probably 3 feet now. Again, sit here forever and wonder how necessary they are. Till somebody rips through there with a cement truck and then it's too late. Although they're not gonna stop them anyways. I guess from a practical standpoint, we don't, and I understand this is your product and you want to protect it, but we don't require them on gas station canopies. We don't have it on most. We don't have it on the Drexel Town Square entrance sign.
No, the gas station canopies are somewhat different because they have to be a minimum height, and that's state and federal regulation as opposed, and including local. So it's slightly different. And, you know, they're absolutely correct. There is a clearance bar that is just ahead of the Associated Bank ATM location, which is remote. However, unfortunately, that didn't come before the Plan Commission for local review and approval. We do have clearance bars elsewhere. We do have clearance information that's been incorporated into canopies. They're a little bit different because they're not kind of this remote architectural feature, if you will. They're more of a standard canopy, so they're a little bit taller, they're a little bit more, you know, flat, or they have a little bit more surface to work with, as opposed to these particular canopies.
Swing and last.
Yep.
Good idea, though. So, okay, commissioners, this is our only hang up. What do we want to do with canopy, with canopy sign?
I guess depending on the final parking lot or the signage, the master sign plan, it can be worked out at a different location if feasible, and if it's not.
The other option that we have, not to interrupt, is we can recommend approval of everything but the clearance bar, and we can come back to the Plan Commission if the clearance bar needs to go in. Wouldn't be an additional fee for that.
Because we can't figure it out here.
Well, to be fair though, we don't have an exact location,
No,
so we
you're right.
can't make a determination if there are any conflicts.
You're right. You're correct. I'm being a little harsh. Sorry about that. Okay, that would be fair. I mean, I would like to see it worked out through staff if at all possible, if we can work it out. Again, the whole clutter factor and everything, people park their cars, and they walk into the bank. You know, they're not roller skating through here and the whole deal. So. So how would the motion go, Carrie, concerning everything approved with clearance bars to be,
We wouldn't even specify it in
You
the
would,
conditions,
but
no.
then you'd work it out with the applicant as to location and practical site location.
Yeah, if the Plan Commission doesn't want to, if the Plan Commission isn't comfortable with either prohibiting or restricting these, there's no additional condition that you need to put on here.
Can't speak for them, but it sounded like there was a strong sentiment to prohibit them.
Right, and, you know, like, again, staff's comments were just trying to reduce the clutter that's in this area, trying to make sure that everything has its place and everything is, you know, makes sense with where it needs to be for, you know, for all of the elements that are part of this development, so. But again, when we were looking at the potential revisions that would kind of address some of those flow items that were raised at the last Plan Commission meeting, we don't have a solution to that yet either. So that can be incorporated into those reviews.
I votes to not approve that, and they gotta come back if they need to put it in. Hopefully that, you know, gives them the motivation to, you know, find something else, and they don't have to come back. Just to kind of keep moving this along. That's my vote.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, we'll ask for a motion.
So I guess I have a question. So we keep talking about this, but if there was another approach, we would have had it by now. So I don't know what else except changing the location will get that. That's the only thing I can hear from all those discussions. So unless the location changes, there is no other approach.
From what I'm hearing, there's a couple of options. One, prohibit them.
Yeah.
2, limit the number. Or 3, don't say anything and just let staff figure out where and how many. Those are the 3 options.
Exactly.
Or 4th option, you don't include it in this approval and you say you have to come back if you want it.
I would agree with that.
All right, well, make the motion.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something, sir? And you know the deal, you gotta come up.
I'm sorry, I walked into the middle of this, but can you combine the light poles?
Name and address.
Ann Lampy, 8436 South Howell Avenue. Can you combine the light pole with the clearance pole?
I don't believe you can, because if you'd hit the clearance pole, you'd take the light pole. You mean like string them between the light poles?
Yeah, put something between the light poles. I said I walked in the middle, so I don't know where the light poles are going,
We
but,
don't know either, that's part of the problem.
but can you just put like how tall are the light poles?
15 feet?
So could you just put a thing off of the light pole that says clearance?
Well,
10
and if
feet, 6
somebody does
inches?
hit it, they rip the light poles down and then we're without light.
No, because they could put the same swinging bar they talked about on the clearance pole.
The light pole probably wouldn't support that weight once it was hit and it swings. The light pole ain't designed to quite have that swivel effect.
Okay.
Actually, the reason also they should not be on the light pole because they will get missed because people don't look at light pole for signs, they look at actual sign structures, so.
Okay.
So far.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
We should just leave it and see what happens. Let
I-
install it.
I don't have a good example where these were used other than where they specified in Bayview and how it works. Obviously, there's a market for them because people are putting them in. So, maybe it's worth doing.
I'll just correct my statement real quick because I looked at satellite image. Chick-fil-A does have one, as does Taco Bell and Burger King.
Right.
Do they?
Yeah, so,
And
and if Associated Bank has one.
I guess unless you drive that type of vehicle, you don't pay attention. Or, you work in an industry where you drive a vehicle like that. So,
But this is their own liability, right? Because the sign is out there and telling them.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I don't, maybe they're not the prettiest, but it's the functionality of it. What we're really trying to do is protect people and property with this. So I think that's kind of the question, and we want to make sure that, it's not too cluttered, that it's accessible. So I think it can be accomplished depending on where it's located and what's there. They keep saying light posts are there. Well, are light posts right in the walking path on the island? Are they one or two stalls in? I don't know.
The issue is we don't know exactly where the clearance bars are, bars are proposed. It's just an area. So if the plan commission is comfortable with staff working with them, if you want to limit the number of bars, that's something you can do. If you want to exclude them from your approval, that's something you can do. If you want to prohibit them, we're hearing that that's something that is probably not going to happen or is not preferable for protecting the infrastructure for the ITMs themselves. And we're also hearing that the ITMs are probably not designed so that they can incorporate the clearance information in a way that would prevent damage to those ITM canopies. So staff is willing to work with the applicants. If the plan commission is really, really concerned about, the number, I would recommend that you institute a number, limit on it, or, exclude it altogether from your approval.
Okay, that's the choice. So we can have staff continue to work with them with two or less. That gives them an option. We're leaving it wide open for you.
The other thing is, I've not seen any places that have had 2 clearance bars. I understand that there are 3 ITM lanes here with 3 ITM canopies, but I've not seen any place that has 2 clearance bars. So if you want to limit it to 1, if we can work with 1, we can work on the location.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Let's take a stab at it. Ms. Don?
I'll do it.
So condition number 5 would be that one clearance bar is approved.
Oldani moves that the Plan Commission approves the master sign plan submitted by PJ Theron, UW Credit Union for the UW Credit Union property located at 7902 South Main Street with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code and conditional use permit requirements remain in effect. 2, that the monument sign base and address fins meet the requirements of the DTS MUPDD. Number 3, the permits are issued for signs prior to installation. 4, that all detailed, revised, and finalized plans are submitted in digital format to the Department of Community Development prior to submission of permit applications. And 5, 1 approved clearance bar.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call. Bukovic, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Oldani, aye.
Seibert, no.
Anna, I.
Grillo, aye.
Clark, aye.
Okay, made it. One or the other. So continue to work with staff. We'll try to figure it out if there's a way we can possibly get there. Okay, that was on 9B. That's gonna get us to 9C. That is a rezone conditional use permit consideration. It's to review requests submitted by Ray Parker Guggenheim Development Services LLC to rezone the property at 8355 South Howell from B4 highway business with a conditional use permit for a service station, which, Carrie, we're not actually talking about a service station. It's something different.
Service station is not a fueling station. Service station is your typical oil change, tire rotation, that kind of service station.
Okay,
So this excludes auto body and mechanical repairs.
with that, I will turn it over to Carrie.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Just want to confirm that the plan commissioners received this staff report and the information. It is missing from my packets. I just want to make sure that you all received it. Okay, good. Thank you. So the current zoning of this property is B2, and the request is to change it to B4, highway business. We do have highway business B4 zoning in the area, and it is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which calls for the entire corridor along South Howell Avenue in this area to be commercial. So the conditional use permit request included with the rezone is again for a service station. And in this case, it would be for Jiffy Lube as the tenant. There are no wetland changes that are proposed as part of this. And what's on the screen right now is the conceptual development plan. Of course, this is not the actual site plan that would be presented to the Plan Commission necessarily. There would be some minor modifications, additional information that would be required prior to Plan Commission review of these plans if the conditional use permit and rezone were to be recommended for approval. So again, the services that would be incorporated in this would be like fluid changes, tire maintenance, battery service, wiper blade repair or replacement, and the like. This is a roughly 3,000 gross square foot building that has 4 service bays. Again, no auto body or mechanical repair, no painting of vehicles or anything like that. We did not receive information regarding the number of shifts. However, we did receive hours of operation that would be proposed as well as the number of employees. Typical for Jiffy Lubes are 1 manager per site, up to 2 assistant managers per site, and an additional 6 to 8 employees. So over the course of those hours of operation, which are on the screen, that's the number of employees that you can anticipate being there at any given time. They do anticipate 1 oil delivery per week. They will be storing their waste oil and their other oil products interior to the building in above ground tanks. Those removal of those waste oil products are going to be by an EPA registered company and disposed of per EPA regulations, state and federal as well. There is going to be a condition proposed by staff if this is recommended for approval for any used oil filters, rags, or similar waste to be stored and disposed of interior to the building and not included in that exterior dumpster location. There are some concerns for those types of combustible materials to be combined with just irregular trash. Per the fire department, and I apologize if I'm stealing your thunder, this building will be required to be sprinklered. There is a shared access drive that is already there. The agreements are in place. It was an anticipation that this forward parcel would be developed because the parcel in the back is already developed with a multi-tenant building. So that shared access agreement is in place. The shared access road is in place. There is no new access for this particular parcel. There is no additional access to Howell Avenue for this parcel. The wetlands that are on the property will not be changed. The stormwater was conducted or installed and designed in anticipation of this parcel being developed as well. We do have some stacking that's shown for each of the bays. It does show 2 cars stacking length, stacking distance, stacking spaces, excuse me, per bay, but we do not have dimensions. So if this moves forward and those revised plans for Plan Commission approval of the actual site and building plans, those dimensions would be required. Minimum parking for this particular use, we require 1 stall for every 300 gross square feet of building, plus 1 stall per service bay, and that would be a total of 14 required. They are showing 14 in this site plan. We do note, though, that the parking is shown forward of the building, closer to Howell Avenue. There is a requirement that they be a minimum of 15 feet to allow for minimum landscaping along Howell Avenue. However, staff is recommending that the parking be no closer to Howell Avenue than the building, if at all possible. Landscaping to screen those parking stalls will be a requirement if this moves forward. We also have received conceptual elevations for the building. I'll show you those elevations. These are the north and south. So north would be, coming into the property where that drive is. South is how they would access, customers would access those service bays. And then east and west. East is what would be seen from Howell Avenue, and that is the predominant concern with regard to building materials and a little bit of the design. So if this does move forward, future plans would be required to be revised to comply more with code and to include some more architectural features. And staff will continue to work with the applicants on that if this is recommended for approval. So just a reminder that the initial recommendation of approval is not an endorsement of specific plans. So if the Plan Commission does recommend that Common Council approves of the rezone and conditional use permit, you are not recommending approval of these particular site and building plans. With that in mind, there is a suggested motion on the screen for approval. Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you, Carrie. Would the applicant like to say anything before we go to commission, if you're with us?
This way, if you guys have any questions.
Okay. Let's just start us off. Fred?
I just have.
Oh, I'm sorry, wait, thank you, Greg. We did have somebody wishing to speak. Oh, here it is. Judith, come on up. You get the first word. We'll need your name and address, ma'am.
All right.
And you can pull a microphone down to yourself.
What's that?
You can pull that microphone down if you feel like it.
It's on, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. I live directly across the street from this planned business. And I just don't think that in the area that it's in, that it's a good fit. I mean, there's all professional buildings there. And the traffic, the lane that makes the approach there is the lane that comes from Forest Hill. And there's hardly a month that goes by that there isn't an accident there, where the fire department and the police have to come and, people are hurt, cars are banged up, and it just doesn't seem like a good fit. It seems that there's Honeywell in the corner, the Children's Hospital Clinic is in the back. There's a lot of traffic during the day going in and out of that clinic with, parents and children. I just don't understand how that would fit in there. With people, the more traffic that comes for people that would be using that business. And the lighting at night, I'm wondering is there going to be a lot of lighting in that parking lot at night? Adding to the already existing lighting on Howell Avenue, that my house is probably the closest to Howell Avenue of all the homes that are across the street from that property. And it's very difficult as it is with the lights just from Howell Avenue. The hours, it seems like the hours are fine. I was worried that it would be a business that would be, open until 10, 11 o'clock at night. Well, that isn't the case, thank goodness. The garbage sounds like it would take, it's going to be taken care of, especially including any kind of oil and rags and things like that. But you would not believe what blows into our properties across Howell Avenue from just those existing buildings that are there now. From the Honeywell building, the dumpsters when DeCarlo's was in business, and people going up and down Howell Avenue, they throw everything that you could possibly imagine out of their car windows that lands in our grass. So, but my biggest, and the other thing is, within walking distance of our house, there's, Woodman's has an oil change place. I believe Keen's has oil changes in the repair department in the back. They do oil changes. There's an oil change place in front of Kohl's. So why do we need another one on Howell Avenue right there at that particular location?
I don't know, they must make a lot of money with oil change places if they're gonna put in a fourth one. I can't answer that one.
Yeah,
It's-
I just don't, I just
Like, why
don't
we
think
have
it's
so
a
many
good
fast
fit
food
there.
Restaurants. It's-
Because those are all professional buildings there. I mean, DeCarlo's isn't there right now, but something I'm sure eventually will go into that building that will suit that building's, abilities. But as far as I'm concerned, I just don't see that it's a good fit.
Ma'am, could we get your name and address for the record, please?
All right, my name is Judith Salco, and I live at 8366 South Howell Avenue.
Fred?
Yeah, I have a question. Would we need to do a traffic study for this location just to verify it because it's on Howell Avenue?
That's a question beyond my knowledge.
I don't believe that the traffic counts would be something that would require a traffic impact analysis, and the drive was constructed in anticipation of this lot being developed in the future, some shared access, but we can certainly look into that. If required, it could be a part of the conditional use permit conditions and restrictions if recommended for approval.
Fred, you still have the floor if you got more.
That's it.
Okay, Don?
I have a traffic or at least traffic pattern question. When you go south of Forest Hill on Howell, you got that lane and everyone knows it where it just kind of ends. There's arrows and there's always people just flying up and jamming in there at the very last minute. And that ends right at the entrance that goes into Children's Hospital, which would be the entrance for this place. I'm not crazy about the idea of having us in there, but I think something has to happen with that lane, something. It just kind of just ends, and that is going to be a major issue. I'm sure they already had issues with Children's Hospital, but it sounds like there's going to be less traffic for Children's Hospital now that they got rid of the emergency, right? They just end the emergency.
I don't have information for that, but
They did get rid of.
So you have less there, but you're probably going to have a lot more now with a Jiffy Lube there. So I think that's a huge concern, and the city needs to look at that, especially if this Jiffy Lube is going to go in.
I, as you were speaking, I realized that we do have, I think we have an upcoming regular standing, staff phone call with WISDOT that's coming up. And we can certainly run this past WISDOT and ask if they need any, additional information, or if they would require a TIA, or if they would require anything for like an extension of that merge lane or what have you. We haven't heard anything, but we can certainly ask WISDOT.
All avenues.
That's it.
Okay, yeah, well, certainly, use your influence, whatever you gotta do, or at least the conversation needs to be had at,
Right, we can
Yeah,
certainly run
yeah.
these plans past them, yeah.
yeah, that's my main concern. I hate that lane. It's nasty.
Are correct.
And, it is. I think everyone who lives in Oak Creek knows that lane is insane.
Yeah.
And, I see major issues there. And then secondly, I'm not a big, unfortunately, I'm just not a big fan of this going in there, but, this is about rezoning right now. That's it.
Can I make another comment?
You gotta come up, ma'am.
The other thing with that is,
You gotta be on the microphone.
the other thing with that lane is that people making a U-turn on Forest Hill off of Howell to go south, all of us that live over there, if we want to go south, from my driveway, I have to watch for traffic constantly to try and scoot into that lane to be able to go south on Howell Avenue. And I only do it if it's during not high traffic period times, because there's no way you can do it in the morning or rush hour in the afternoon. But that too creates a problem trying to get turned around to go south there with that lane, with all the oncoming traffic, and people don't watch from Forest Hill. They're making a turn to go south on Howell Avenue, and that's what causes the accidents. There's just not enough room there for manipulation for a lot of traffic that's coming and going.
And again, it's a state. They've laid it out.
Yes.
I'll have to get in contact with them regarding it, but I don't disagree with, with Don or anything you've said as well.
Whenever I hear the sirens coming from Centennial or from the 6th Street, I'm always wondering, are they out there on Howell and Forest Home again, or Forest Hill for an accident? So I just had to remark about that.
Come on up, Ann.
Go ahead.
And then Judy gets to listen to my dog howl whenever the sirens go by. So
Once again, just a name.
Ann Lampe, 8436 South Howell Avenue. And we too, we're on the southern end of this property across the street. If you don't like the use, it actually is in your power to say no to the rezoning. It's not allowed in the B2 zoning.
Well, I understand.
So.
That's why
so-
they're here.
Yes, exactly. So he said he doesn't like it, but, well, you can do something about that.
Yeah.
But my question is, the future use of this site, because eventually if everyone's driving electric cars, they're not going to be going to Jiffy Lube. So can they put in charging stations? Is the gasoline an absolute separate conditional use?
They, that's a whole nother issue there probably, because they don't have gasoline.
No,
No.
there's no request for a gas station.
Right, but what about the charging stations? Is that allowed under that?
In the future, if we're all driving electric cars, we would have to, first of all, update our zoning and everything, and they'd probably have to come in just as well.
Okay, what about, so it's not,
Guessing.
because it's not written anywhere, it's just not, okay. What about car wash?
Car wash would be a separate request.
So that is not under a service station?
No,
Okay. And we too deal with the traffic. We know we live on Howell Avenue, but, I agree, Judy, it's crazy making that U-turn. And if you have people now queuing on Howell Avenue to get into that, it's gonna be worse, so.
Okay. Don, you had it. Are you finished?
I'm finished.
Okay. Chris?
My comment would be, Howell Avenue. We know it's a state highway, so if we can my recommendation or ask would be to put it on our notes for the next meeting, conversation that we have with Stott. So at least the conversations can be had.
yep, our quarterly discussion with WISTAT is scheduled for July 26th, which unfortunately is the next Plan Commission meeting, so we wouldn't necessarily have comments that would be provided to the Plan Commission in a staff report prior to the next meeting.
Thank you.
But we can certainly provide these plans to them in advance so that they have enough time to review them, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you.
Greg?
So the first resident that spoke actually kind of stole my thunder. I think it is kind of an odd location being in front of the Children's Hospital, clinics, and then next to the eyeglass place and the DeCarlo's building. But I also understand that the use fits within our comprehensive plan. As far as the rezone, not to put you on the spot, are you able to provide examples of what could go into a B2 district versus the B4?
B2 district is more community business oriented, so your small scale cafes, things like that, those are more intended to be neighborhood businesses. Being on Howell Avenue, it is, highway business oriented, so that's why staff was recommending that, yes, the rezone could proceed with B4. The location along Howell Avenue would lend to that. A service station would not be allowed in the B2 district, nor would it be allowed in the B3 district. I don't know if that answers your question. There are some other, uses that would be allowed in B2, but I'm not entirely certain that the existing multi-tenant commercial building in the back, which we are all calling Children's Hospital because that's a major tenant in there, but there are other tenants in that multi-tenant commercial building. I'm not entirely certain that would be allowed in the B2 district, at least not that large of a building. I'd have to take a look. And of course, whatever tenants are in that building, they would have to comply with the allowed uses per the district. So they may require a conditional use as well, but this would not be allowed in that district.
And then clearly the property owner has a right to request a rezone. And I understand it may fit in the comprehensive plan. My opinion, it just seems a little bit out of place with the surrounding buildings, but I can say that. And then the resident also pointed out a couple lots over, there's already a service station. So it's not too out of place, I guess, but it just seems like an odd location for that.
And I do need to correct myself. That multi-tenant building is a multi-tenant office building because it's in the B3 district.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Actually, I have one more question. Possibly for the applicant. Does this business do state emissions testing?
Name and address, please.
Yep. It's on. Dustin Salter with Excel Engineering, representing Guggenheim, the applicant here, address 100 Camelot Drive, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. I'm not aware of any emissions testing necessarily with this, just because there really isn't any. I mean, it's a service station where there's no other than complying with any sort of HVAC emissions or things like that. That would all be standardized, just standard national state codes.
Okay, thank you.
I can address, I guess, just a comment on the traffic a little bit. I mean, obviously, this was a planned development area. The entrance onto Howell, it was there and was planned for some form of development on this south lot. Typically, in most developments, we wouldn't provide any sort of a traffic impact analysis when there's no, new access onto DOT like that. And a Jiffy Lube compared to a lot of other uses really isn't going to provide a great quantity of throughput for traffic. I mean, if you were to put some other B2 type business in there, it would probably see even more traffic than a Jiffy Lube. So I think the traffic concerns, I understand it locally. With this, without having any new access onto Howell, I just don't think that it warrants a full traffic impact analysis.
Greg?
Done, yes.
Ashley?
Nothing from engineering, thank you.
Dawn?
I think we've gone over most everything else.
Christine?
Nothing here.
Okay. Man, residents are right, there's a lot of businesses that could have went here that would probably have a greater impact across the street than others, not only traffic wise, but garbage wise and things like that, paper bags, stuff like that. Could be some form of fast food that could be in here asking to get in there. As Carrie said, it could be some kind of cafe type of thing. Probably come up with some bad examples, but Oak Creek Diner. It's all gonna be very impactful. I don't think the oil places impact traffic as the applicant said. We had on this was always gonna be developed in some fashion. I personally had a couple of car washes come in here and ask. I think a car wash with queuing and stacking on Howell, I think it would have been a nightmare on this site, actually. Looking at it, it never came to fruition, which is why we're looking at this. I agree with the applicant, we're not here for that right now. But looking at the building, Carrie pointed out the building, the lighting issues and things like that. Aesthetic we're looking for on how, at least for me, not so much with the sides, but boy, that east elevation. Plain. Something definitely there. As far as putting it there, I also agree with the neighbors. We do have a ton of them, but they must be lucrative, and people put them in, they put in service stations, and they put in restaurants, just the same too when we have many of them. So, that is the right of the applicant and the owner. I think we have a ways to go to get this correct, but I can't come up with a reason to actually deny it. Because it's not a gas station. It's not a Quick Trip or anything like that. So Carrie, this is just strictly for this one type of business, or could under this, as we change that zoning designation, what else could go in here? A Dunkin' Donuts?
Well, the rezone and the conditional use permit are being requested at the same time. So the rezone would be to B4, and the conditional use permit is for a service station. If they were to withdraw their service station conditional use permit, then they could have anything else that would be allowed in the B4 district. Or if there's another conditional use that they want to have instead of a service station that would be in the B4 district, they could apply for a conditional use permit for that specific use.
No, and I look at that, if, just say it became a Dunkin' Donuts, I think that'd be far more impactful, traffic-wise. That's just my personal opinion.
And keep in mind that the drive-through component of a fast food restaurant or a quick service restaurant, if there was one, would require additional review.
Agreed. Yeah, boy. It's.
Comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, obviously, we can't go through our life saying no to everything that would go there, but at least, in my opinion, if you keep it B4, you do have some limitations. That doesn't mean you might have something in B4 that you're not happy with, but it does narrow it down, in my opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing it remain B4. That's my opinion right there. I'm sorry, B2. I had that backwards. I wouldn't mind seeing it remain B2.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we'll go for a motion.
Yes, it's an area.
Yep. Guzekowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the property at 8355 South Howell Avenue be rezoned to B2 community business to B4 highway business with the conditional use permit for a service station after a public hearing and subject to conditions and restrictions that will be prepared for the Plan Commission's review at the next meeting.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with, where are we? I'm sorry, are we on 9C?
Yes.
Yes, 9C. Chris?
Kuzikowski, aye.
Ladani, no.
Seifert, aye.
And I know.
Bill, I.
Jinsky, aye.
Clark, no. Davich, no. Give it another shot with something else.
So that's denied.
And pass.
Motion is denied.
Okay, that'll get us to 9D. Let's review a request for the properties at 9102, 9120, 9140 South 27th Street to rezone from RS3 single family. Gary?
This is actually me, Mr.
Oh,
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Jack. I even got a note it's you and I missed it. Sorry
That's
about
okay.
that.
And stated, just for the record, stated in the agenda for tonight, these properties were to be rezoned to RS3. However, upon further discussions between staff and the applicant, it was determined that RD1 would be the best approach to align with the future land use plan for these parcels in the comprehensive plan. Like you said, this proposal is to rezone the properties. That will be to RS1 from B4 to RS2. And this proposal is part of an overall concept for single-family attached residential housing on the property. Properties. 36 units are shown on the concept plans with access along 27th Street. While the review of the concept plan is not part of this review, it has been included for your reference. This is the overall concept site plan. And reviews, including but not limited to a planned unit development, will be required for any future development of the parcels. The applicant is aware of this required process. Additionally, this rezone does not endorse any concept plans shown. Overall, staff have no concerns with the proposed rezone. With that being said, there is a motion for plan commissioners to consider. Thanks.
Applicants, anybody like to say anything before we get rolling to the commission? You have to come up, sir.
Yeah, hi there, Mark Eberle with Nielsen Hanson Barber, 1458 Horizon Boulevard. Just here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's start to the left this time. Dawn, you ready?
Yeah, I have no questions.
Okay, Ashley,
Nothing for me.
Greg?
No questions. I do think that this is an improvement over the last concept that was brought with I believe it was a multi-story commercial building, a long kind of stretch of road to, I believe, single family attached in the back of the lot. This decreases that quite a bit and puts it all where the commercial building would be. So, but no questions at this time.
Okay. Chris?
So this would be, Carrie, only, residential? I'm sorry, Jack, I apologize.
Yeah, I'll answer that.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, this proposal is changed from the previous proposal that the applicants have made at previous plan commission meetings. This proposal is only for single family attached. The previous proposals are not part of their proposed concept plans anymore.
What about access? How would they gain access in?
Access is shown on 27th Street. As you can see, it's on the south end of the parcel.
Does there need to be, for the fire department, do they need more than, one, inlet and outlet to get into said area? Or?
Looks like Mike stepped out of the room. That would be something that we would review at, if this were to move forward, but I don't think we received any comments from the fire department about the conceptual development plan.
Okay.
But we're just kind of on a rezone now.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Is that it, Chris?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Don?
No questions.
Fred?
I just think it's an improvement. I agree with Craig that it looks a lot better and it doesn't interfere with the wetlands that they have on the property. So,
I guess from my perspective, this is a Jack question or a Gary question. It kind of predates him maybe a little bit, but 27th Street overlay, how does that play into that?
If you're referring to the overlay districts for the city, they are gone. They were how do I say this? The standards that were incorporated into those overlay districts under the old code were just rolled into the overall standards for the zoning code as base district requirements.
Because I always thought we wanted facing 27th more of a commercial business look.
It's not what it's zoned for. There's a portion that's zoned B for. The comprehensive plan called for the entire portion of all three of these properties to be two-family residential. I think we're recognizing with the comprehensive plan amendment, I'm sorry, not the amendment, but the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2020, just what has actually been developing along 27th Street. And while the overlay districts had intended to kind of steer development toward a particular design and some particular uses, unfortunately, since their inception in roughly 2005, we hadn't seen, it hasn't come to fruition the way that we had planned it. So this was recognizing what is in the area, what's to the north, single-family residential, what's to the south, multifamily residential, kind of recognizing what actually has developed in the area.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I agree with the commission, vast improvement. And I know that's only conceptual and there's questions to be, talked about with that, but I'm sure as this progresses, we'll get to that stage. So, okay, if there's no further discussion, question?
Can I say something?
Sure, come on up.
I didn't know the protocol or.
Normally we fill out a form, but that's okay.
Alfred Plasek, 2401 West Hilltop Lane. So the road directly north of this plan. First question, is this rental units or is this condominiums that would be sold to owners?
This is conceptual on the zoning.
Okay, so has nothing to do.
Am I correct in that? It's just the zoning carries.
It's just the zoning for this item.
Yeah.
All right, and this is now currently zoned commercial along 27th Street, correct? And this would be changing it to two-family because I saw on the sheet that was sent out, it said single-family residential. And so that has changed from when the mailer went out? It's now two-family?
So overall, the applicant has intended for this, while this is a conceptual plan, the applicant is intending for the two-family residential. Those are considered, they're similar to townhomes is what the applicant is intending to go for. And it's listed as single-family attached because there are attached units on the property if this conceptual plan comes into fruition.
Okay.
It was stated before, but the original request was for RS3, which is single-family residential, because the applicant's consultant had read the zoning code and saw that the particular use of the property as the townhome style would be allowed in that district as well. After talking with them and explaining that the comprehensive plan identifies this area for two-family residential, that's why the zoning district changed. It was just kind of a discussion with staff about what it is they were actually requesting. They just got the zoning district wrong.
And is the zoning changing for the whole 1,200 foot deep parcel or just for this front usage? Because the three strips go back like 1,200 feet. And
Gary?
That is actually dependent on a different item in tonight's agenda. That's part of a certified survey map that that is proposed to combine the properties. If that passes and the rezone passes, the proposed lot, the single lot would be considered RD1, which is two-family residential.
So all 1,200 feet going back
That is correct.
to almost 20th Street would be considered that.
Yes, but largely on the eastern end of the lot is wetlands, which has very limited.
I know, that's where I live.
Okay.
It's very difficult. When it rains, that place just turns into a swamp. I can't imagine. And my concern is the drainage and what would happen to the houses along there if you started filling all that in and pushing all that back.
Again, that's conceptual, and we talked about fill, you can't do it. That's why the plan they had the first time was really hop, skipping and jumping all around there. The only thing really workable is probably on that far east end, if even that. But as of right now, the last thing he had on the screen, if you go back one slide, as Jack said, he is correct. It would all zone for that.
So the whole thing would,
Yeah.
okay.
Whether he can use it or not is a different subject.
All right, and in a past discussion, and maybe you remember this, maybe you don't, but you had stated that connecting any of this property to Hilltop Lane was something that would not ever happen.
Correct.
Correct, because the traffic on Hilltop Lane, once it was opened up to Tanglewood, is horrible. And we have drag racing and all that you're familiar with our road and the dual levels and
Yeah.
we can't have any more traffic in that area.
Again, I'll leave it at this. I'll never say never because I don't even know if there's a connection point. I'm not that familiar with who owns.
And I don't either.
But, connection points become an issue. But again, he'd have to get all the way to that back half and cost putting the roads around that wetland.
Yeah.
I think that's why you're seeing the design change to try to use the property they can. But just guessing for the applicant,
Yeah.
not speaking for the applicant. I'm just kind of putting my own opinion out there.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Okay, anyone else?
I was just gonna say that, I was, supporting this when it, would be single-family residential. The two-family, this is in my district, that this changes things for me, just, from my perspective, so. But that's all I had to say.
Yeah. And again, it's a little deceiving because we do have a conceptual plan in front of us and you get that in your head.
Yeah.
Where right now we're just talking about the zoning, so, it could shift and change and maybe the individual would turn it into a subdivision, no idea, so. There's no further discussion, motion?
Seifert moves that the planning commission recommends to the common council that the properties at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th Street be rezoned from B4 highway business and R2 single-family residential to R1 two-family residential after a public hearing.
Oracle second. Roll call, beginning with Don.
Donnie, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Anna, I.
Deloy.
Shinsky, aye.
Clark, aye.
Avich, aye.
Guzekowski, no.
It will get us to 9E. This is it's getting late. Minor land division. Review a certified survey map, combining the properties at 9102, 9120, 9140 South 27th Street. Jack.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like you said, this is a proposal for a certified survey map to combine the properties shown on the screen. It's related to the previous agenda item. Following consolidation, the parcel will be 14.77 acres in size, and it does meet all dimensional requirements for the existing zoning district and the proposed rezone that has to go through common council and public hearing process. Identified on the map are wetlands which have been delineated, but the required 15-foot setback for the wetlands is not shown. Additionally, a 30-foot wide road reservation is on the east of the parcel. which is shown on the map, but that needs to be removed in a revised map because that road reservation is actually located on the parcel directly east. Finally, woodland areas on the northern portion of proposed Lot 1 must be preserved. These minor issues have been included in a recommended condition of approval. With that being said, there is a motion for approval on the screen. Thanks.
Okay. Chris, your district, you want to kick it off? Any questions, comments?
I have none at this time, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Greg?
I have no questions.
Ashley?
Nothing from me.
John?
Nothing from me.
Christine?
No, nothing.
No questions.
Don?
No questions.
You know, we all understand why we're doing it. We kind of covered it, when the one neighbor came up. I guess has nothing to do with this, but just kind of educate me. If all this is combined and it's 14.77 acres, and they put in a development, does everything to the east, that the wetlands, everything count as our green space because it's all combined property? Or do we just hack off the part they're gonna develop and they gotta do green space on there?
So with any development, they have to meet the requirements of code with regard to open space, green space, preservation of wetlands. Excuse me, and the wetlands actually do not count toward density calculations under the new code. So whatever ends up happening in the rear of the property, that would have to be incorporated into any development plans for the Plan Commission to consider. So to answer your question, yes, it would, unless it was proposed for some kind of development. With the RD1 zoning, that two-family residential zoning district would allow for certain combinations. Anything that happens on this property, though, would have to come before the Plan Commission for review and approval. And as Jack mentioned previously, those approvals may include a planned unit development, depending on the number of buildings, the number of units per building, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Okay, and I know that didn't have anything to do with this, just thought I'd consider it. So, given that, I do not have any, questions regarding combining those three properties, so, motion.
Guzekowski makes a motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by Anil Yepuri from properties at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th Street be approved with the following conditions. One, that the certified survey map is revised to remove the road reservation prior to recording. Two, that the certified survey map is revised to include the required 15-foot setbacks to wetlands prior to recording. And three, that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes that are made prior to recording.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, beginning with you, Fred.
Seifert, aye.
And I.
Grillo, aye.
Shinsky, aye.
Lorick, aye. David, aye.
Guzekowski, no.
Donnie, aye.
Okay, that'll get us through today. Coming up, this weekend, there's a pop-up beer garden going on. Begins Thursday night, runs through Saturday in Drexeltown Square, early evening to about 9 o'clock. How's that? I'm not exactly sure the starting time. Farmers Market continues. Dawn, you want to plug it?
Yep, it's chess day at the market. The Milwaukee Chess Club is coming out, and there'll be 20 boards set up, and they'll teach you how to play chess.
Lots going on. So the market was very vibrant and taken off the last few weeks. The weather's looking really great. So get out there, discover and celebrate Oak Creek. Other than that, on behalf of the entire commission, Carrie, we're going to wish you a belated happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So
When is your birthday?
It was Sunday.
See, my birthday was on the 4th of July.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Happy
Happy birthday to you.
Excellent.
yeah.
So, with that, motion to adjourn.
Everyone moves to adjourn at 8:09.
Seifert seconds.
Hey, roll call, Christine.
And I.
Bill, aye.
Krasinski, aye.
Clark, aye. Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Hold on, aye.
Seifert, aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.